Drew here, and it's been a while since we've had a new episode of Chapelwaite to talk about, and I'm glad to inform you that this episode, things really heat up, or rather, they really chill you, but I feel that this episode is the best episode yet. I think it raises the stakes drastically, which was a complaint that I had previously, that I felt that the stakes for the main characters weren't high enough because it didn't really feel like the vampires were playing with no holds barred. But now they have raised the stakes, and that was not intended to be a pun about vampires, but I guess you could take it as one, by their actions this episode. And this is a spoiler review, so if you're not looking for spoilers, come back after you've seen the episode. But I feel that the dramatic high point of this episode was the confrontation between Charles Boone and Jacob in Jerusalem's lot. And this was a moment that I had worried about because I was worried there was going to be this moment where someone just kind of laid it all out in a big info dump and explained all the aspects of vampires that had been established already rather well visually, and I didn't think we needed a big info dump. But I think this scene worked rather well, and I would say in a large part due to the performance of Christopher Heyerdahl. He is a very, very talented character actor who really, really manages to just find things to sink his teeth into in very, very characters that I think with different actors performing them would just be banal, evil characters. But I think that he manages just to relish playing these characters so much, and he just has such an otherworldly quality to him that I don't think there's ever been an actor better suited to play a vampire. If you can think of one, let me know. But here, he's very, very intimidating, and the way that this plays out between him and Charles, it feels like a conversation and not so much like a let's just lay it all out for the audience. So I felt like they did a good job on that end. Now, this was all rather confusing, and I had to kind of go back through the transcripts of previous episodes to kind of figure out everything that was being explained here. But essentially, there's this MacGuffin, which everybody wants, which is the Bible of the vampires, so to speak, the Vermes Mysteries, which is Latin for the mystery of the worm. And Jacob wants it for undisclosed reasons. He doesn't think humans should have it, certainly. And it is the way that these vampires connect to the creature that they view as their god, which is this worm. And what it actually is, I don't know if the series is going to explore. But I think that, clearly there is probably some way that the vampires can be destroyed if this book falls into the wrong hands and they do the wrong thing with it. Stephen and Philip promised to turn it over to Jacob, but they weren't able to because only living Boones can hear the call of the book, which is what drives the Boone insane. And this is all because the great-grandfather of Charles wrote his name in blood in the book, which is where the phrase blood calls blood comes from. So a lot of this is kind of convenient and contrived in certain ways. Like, why didn't Stephen and Philip realize that they wouldn't be able to find the book after they were turned into vampires? Why didn't they give it to Jacob before they were turned? And I suspect that there's going to be an explanation for some of this, but I also feel like some of the explanations are just, well, we needed Charles to be brought into the story, and there wouldn't be a need for him if Stephen and Philip could find the book. Therefore, only living Boones can hear it. But I think that this episode did a good job of setups and payoffs, and it really, like I said, raised the stakes and was actually pretty chilling. Like, I felt like the vampires haven't been that frightening up till now, but there were some moments this episode that were generally frightening to me. And the moment in this confrontation between Charles and Jacob, when Jacob essentially demonstrates how little value he holds for human life.
Oh, Wailer, what mercy did you show Leviathan?
Essentially saying that he views himself as much superior to humans as Charles does to the whales, and he will similarly show Charles and other characters no mercy. And when he brings in Rose, Mallory, and Abel Stewart and has Rose killed with so little compulsion, I really thought there was a chance that Abel would be a goner too. And I think this was a well-done scene because you want to put a character in jeopardy that you actually think the audience actually thinks will die. And I knew Charles was not going to die, but I wasn't sure about Abel because he's an important character to the story, but he's dispensable for certain. So the way that this all played out, I felt like it was the first time in the story where I've really felt that the vampires were not holding back and that they were really a force to be reckoned with. And if Charles wasn't careful, bad things were going to happen to him and his family. So well done there. I think that the other thing, obviously, that's going to stand out about this episode, and this raises the stakes even more, even though it may not actually stick, is the death of Lola. And you know, it's this funny thing with vampires. I think that Charles and the others need to be very careful when they talk to Philip and Stephen and Jacob, because these vampires have a way of making promises that they're not actually, you know, it sounds good, but they're actually intending something malevolent.
And if I return it to you, you free yourself and your children.
Obviously, some of you pointed out last episode that Stephen promised to return Lola to her mother, and you know, she interpreted this to be, you can bring my brother back from the dead, but obviously Stephen's intent was to kill Lola. And you know, why he did this, I'm not exactly sure. He talked moments before he killed Lola about,
I miss my daughter.
And I think it was strongly implied that he killed or was responsible for the death of Rose Mallory's daughter. And I'm coming to suspect that his daughter, Marcella, who died and they found the scissors in her throat and that she had fallen down the cellar steps, I'm coming to suspect that the madness of the Boones that they have because of the call of the worms, the call of the book, led him to kill his own daughter and has led him to kill the daughters of other people in town. And this is his insanity. And I don't think it's been sufficiently demonstrated whether Boones remain insane after they are turned into vampires, but I think that it seems very likely that they do, and that Stephen is still acting on these insane impulses. And why, you know, Jacob tells Charles that Stephen and Philip are going to want the book for their own reasons, and it was explained in an earlier episode that they think that it can undo the Boone curse. So I wonder if the ultimate goal of Stephen and Philip is not to defeat the vampires and potentially to undo the Boone's madness in the process. But this tragic death of Lola, who I feel like was probably everyone's least favorite Boone child, but nonetheless, you know, the death of a daughter is just something that no one would wish on anyone, and it's just a tragic circumstance, and Adrien Brody really acts the heck out of this moment, and it was unexpected to me. I really didn't think that this would happen. Now, it may not stick. Stephen told Lola last episode at one point, no one's ever really dead, not if they don't want to be. So there's definitely potential for this to be reversed. I would kind of be interested to see if Charles kind of goes through a pet cemetery situation in an effort to resurrect his daughter, and that potentially leads him to more tragedy and madness. I would be interested in seeing the story go down that way personally, but I don't know if that's what they're going to go for. Otherwise, this episode, Constable Denison stakes out his jail to try and protect Mary from Philip, and this was one of the more frightening scenes in the episode to me, from a horror perspective, because, you know, that moment as he's waiting, you know, you feel like you're prepared, but you're not really prepared for what's going to happen, and you never know when the person's going to show up. And the twist that instead of sucking her blood, that Philip has turned Mary into a vampire, I thought that was a solid twist. Now, I did feel like they undercut the intimidating factor of the vampires during this scene, because I really do feel that Constable Denison would have been dead. I don't think he would have been able to fight back and preserve his life in this situation, and I feel like having him survive kind of shows that he has plot armor, which is unfortunate. I thought they were going to make it really twist that, you know, he thought that he had saved Mary, and then he goes and she actually ends up killing him. And maybe they'll still do that eventually, but they didn't end the episode that way, which I would have felt would have slightly redeemed in not having Philip kill Constable Denison, because then it would have been like, well, you thought that you had saved Mary, but ultimately all you did was get yourself killed by her instead of by Philip, and it just would have reinforced the power of the vampires and the hopelessness of this situation. So on the whole, I thought this was a great episode, and I think it really opens up the story going forward. But what did you think? Let me know in the comments. And if you're interested in seeing my upcoming reviews of Chapelwaite and other shows, please consider subscribing to the channel. And as always, thanks so much for watching.